रिवॉल्वर चाहिए। Tell people I was a revolutionary.
Well, a warm welcome to you, Vicky, and a huge congratulations on Sardar Udham. And I think it's very special because you've always played characters who are real and rooted. But I think playing India's unsung freedom fighter is another level altogether, you know? So besides the written material at hand and Shoojit Sircar's director, I mean, what did you rely on about the process of becoming Sardar Udham on screen?
Two things. Firstly, was the brief that I would get from Sujita at that very moment whenever I had to emote something, because for this one film, I knew that the biggest tool I would have is to just surrender to him and surrender to his vision. I had to literally just unlearn everything that I had learned over the years, empty my cup, and just present that cup to Sujit Sarkar and just let him fill that cup with the vision that he had of Sardar Udham Singh. Uh, Secondly, really trust my instincts a lot, because there are so many intense scenes and so many scenes with like such gravitas in the film, and
Yeah.
you don't even have the crutches of dialogues to help you with to kind of tell the audience what he's actually going through in those moments of silences,
Mm.
that I had to really trust my instincts and really push myself into that zone between action and cut, as to what I had no choice but to actually feel it, and then let that project onto the screen. So I guess in it's a very a paradoxical thing that it was simple and difficult at the same time. Simple in its approach, that there was not a complicated process involved, but it was difficult because what you had to do simply was the most challenging part.
Mm. Indeed. And I think, because there are so many different emotions attached to Sardar Udham Singh, I mean, you have the patriotic aspect, you have like the sort of pain that he has and that determination that he has for what he wants for his country and what his goal is. And I think even shooting for the Jallianwala Bagh scene, I mean, just thinking about it now, brings a tear to my eye and it gives me goosebumps. So I must have been really difficult for you, right? Just sort of, I guess, find those right emotions and I guess to channel that and actually allow that to sink in. So I mean, how did you deal with those sentiments, especially when they are so high octane as well?
The Jallianwala Bagh sequence was, in particular, a very challenging section in the process of filming this film, because when I kind of go back in time and try and think how it was, it was firstly physically very taxing. You've seen, I don't know if I can speak in details and when this is going to come out, because I would want people to watch that sequence. But it was physically very taxing, but at the same time mentally, you know what, Anuj, I was always prepared. An actor is always prepared, knowing that what scene he's going to shoot, because he's read the script, he's jammed with the director about it. But Jallianwala Bagh sequence, I think, was probably the first time in my life, in my acting career, that I went through a scene which I was just not prepared as to how hard hitting it is actually going to be in
Mm,
that moment. And it used to be really hard hitting, it used to be really numbing. And what used to really happen to me was, once I packed up on that particular night and I would go back to my hotel room, I would not, I could not help but think that, there were people who actually went through this.
sure.
There were 20,000 people who were caged in that walled bag with nowhere else to go, and they were just on the receiving end of a battalion of army which just kept shooting at them till their bullets were done.
I know.
And they were unarmed people. It's just for me, I could not sleep that night. I could not get any sleep thinking that people had actually gone through that. Those were some numbing moments in the film.
Absolutely. And I think what's even scary to know is that a lot of, I mean, I watched a documentary, I think, some time ago about this, and the fact that even imperialists, even now, are not even apologetic about it. They were like using it as a way to control and instill fear. It's just scary how even people still even think to justify it. It's really scary to kind
Yeah.
of know that. But I think again, kudos goes to you, Vicky, as well. You have a very nuanced performance, and I dare I say I think it's actually your best performance yet of your career.
Thank you.
So I would like to just tell you that. But the story of Udham Singh is known by many, is heard by many, sorry, but known by very, very few.
Right.
So what did you discover the most about his actual life? You know, during the India's freedom struggle and his actual life, and to what extent, has the team sort of added their creative sort of aspect to the story as well? So it's two parts to the question, really.
Right. Okay. So to answer the first part of the question, Anuj, see, I belong to a Punjabi family. So I've grown up listening to stories about Sardar Udham Singh, Shahid Bhagat Singh, the Jallianwala Bagh massacre. My ancestral home is just 2 hours away from the Jallianwala Bagh in Amritsar. So there is this cultural familiarity. This it's part of my upbringing. These stories, these characters are part of my upbringing. So to get the opportunity to play this part was very special. And also at the same time I felt like yes, I want to live that part of history. So in that sense it felt pretty close to home, it felt pretty close to heart. What I did know about Udham Singh was the actions of Udham Singh. What I came to know through the filming of Sardar Udham was what he used to think, what his ideologies were, what his state of mind was, what his journey was from Punjab to London, where he's cross-bordered into different countries, different continents, and then finally to reach London, what his struggle was. I never knew that he was a globetrotter who's been to US and Africa and Germany and Spain and Russia and then in London. I didn't know what, now that you've seen the film, Shahid Bhagat Singh and Sardar Udham Singh, these guys were boys. These guys were boys.
Yeah.
And they used to speak about freedom and equality, not just of their own country, not just of the people of their own country. They used to talk about freedom and equality of the people of the whole world. They felt they were aware of the oppression across the globe and not just in India. And they were against the oppression of oppression which was happening in the world. They were talking about the freedom of each and every person in the world. They were fighting for equality for each and every person in the world, irrespective of the nationality. And that for me was just it was mind-boggling for a person. What we don't know is that the gravity of a 23-year-old Bhagat Singh was hanged, a 23-year-old boy. In today's time, a 23-year-old doesn't know what he wants to do in life. And these were boys who were speaking of these lines and words and ideologies at the age of 19, 20, 21. And it's amazing. It's amazing, and it's very important to keep them alive in our films, in our books, in our songs, in whatever art form.
And before I quickly let you go, very, very quickly, I guess part two question again. What change do you see within the Vicky prior to the film, to doing Sardar Udham, and now that you're also going to be playing Field Marshal Sam Manekshaw next, having done a film like Udham, and now obviously Uri as well coming that you've done as well, how do you feel the experiences have fueled your experiences in playing such characters of valor and national pride as well?
I feel. See, it's important for us to remember them, to celebrate them, to discuss them, to talk about them in this generation and in the generations to come. And as artists, I feel that it's our moral responsibility to kind of bring them to the audiences in any way that we could. So I feel very fortunate that I got the chance to be a part of Shoojit Sircar's film, where we got the opportunity to bring this story to the audiences. I guess these are opportunities which I take a lot of pride in, that I will get to relive those episodes of history where probably not many people know of them. For example, Sam Manekshaw again was a figure that I only heard from my father because my mom and dad have gone through the episode of 1971 war. But what he actually was, his journey was, why should we remember a person like Sam Manekshaw or Sardar Udham Singh? These are important chapters of our own history, and it's important for us to learn from them.
Indeed. Well, on that note, time's up. Vicky, so I just wanted to say a huge thank you for joining me on Filme Shilmy, and a huge congratulations for Sardar Udham and presenting us with this amazing piece of cinema and a very, very valiant story, which I think is arguably one of the best films this year. So a huge congratulations and thank you very much.
Thank you, Anuj. Thank you.
Thank you so
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Anuj.